In this video, we're going to talk about two ways you can charge something through induction. And so in the last video, we talked about induction, and induction can polarize objects that are neutral, right? It can create a separation of charge, so there's a positive side and a negative charge. But the object's still neutral, and if you take away the charged object that's near it, it just goes back to normal. Well, here's a way that you can permanently make an object charged um, by not touching it with a charged object, like induction. So if you look in picture 1, I've got a negatively charged sphere, and it's near two other neutral spheres that are touching each other. And now you'll get kind of the normal polarization from the induction, and the electrons in the spheres will be repelled from the negative sphere. So they'll be predominantly in the right sphere. So the one on the right is slightly negative, and the one on the left is slightly positive. But again, together, they have equal numbers of protons and electrons, so they're both neutral. Now if I separate the two spheres, as they're like this, the electrons get trapped in the right sphere, and the right sphere becomes permanently negative, or permanent until otherwise noted negative, because it now has more electrons than it does protons, because some of the electrons that were with the sphere on the left ended up in the sphere on the right. And likewise, the sphere on the left is positively charged because some of its electrons are trapped in the sphere on the right. Same thing is true if we do this in reverse, or with a positive charge rather. If I bring a positively charged object near my two spheres, the electrons will be attracted, and they'll go predominantly to the left sphere. And then if I separate them, the left sphere will be the negative one, and the right one will be positive. And again, with induction before, when you removed the charged object, the thing went back to normal, and it was still neutral the whole time. And here, once we separate the two spheres, they no longer become neutral. They become positive and negative, and that becomes permanent, or they're actually charged now. If we look at picture 3, another way to do this, if you can't separate the object, right? And in the first two pictures, we kind of had a trick, and that's because we could literally tear the object in half, so to speak. Well, in option 3, the thing that we need something to ground the object, which means we need something that can either give a lot of electrons or take a lot of electrons from the object. So once the object is polarized, in number 3, we have a negatively charged object, so the electrons move away from it and move to the far side of the object. If I get an elephant to touch that side, the negative side, electrons will flow from the negative side into the neutral elephant, because all the electrons are repelling each other, and they're kind of like forced into that far corner. And if they're given a place to go where there aren't as many electrons, or the ratio is normal, they will normally spread out. And so what will happen is, once the elephant touches that right side of the block will become positive because it lost electrons. And again, this only works because the negative object is near the block. If it weren't there, then a neutral elephant touching a neutral block would have no effect. But now, because the neutral object is polarized, it's as though part of it were charged. And so we can kind of suck out some of those electrons, and then, hey, it's positive now. And in number 4, I flip it and I use a positively charged object, and so the electrons will move towards it. If the elephant touches the far side will be positive, and electrons will move from the elephant to the positive side because there's more attraction there, because there's not as many electrons. So there's nothing repelling, and it's really positive, so the electrons are attracted. And then when you move, and then the object becomes negative, net negative, no number 4, because it's gained electrons. And again, when you move the elephant, you move the positive charge, it's actually negative now. And so that is charging through induction. And you see that you have to have a little trick. So you either have to have a ground, like the elephant in numbers 3 and 4, or be able to kind of just split the object in half, like in numbers 1 and 2.